Joker Folie, a douchebag, just came out, and I have some thoughts. So, spoiler warning, of course. The biggest criticism I've seen about this movie is the ending, and I guess I'm one of the few that didn't have a problem with it. For me, it made sense given the context of the movie. Arthur Fleck is still fighting his demons in this movie, and it asks the question, did he create the Joker persona to protect himself from his demons? That was kind of the whole point of the cartoon in the beginning, where we see his shadow following him. In the third act of the movie, we discover that Arthur just wants to be himself. He's caused more trouble in his life by becoming the Joker, and he sees that people only love him for this alternate persona and not for who he really is. We see that when he jumps out of the car of his followers, because at that point, he doesn't really want to be the Joker anymore. He tried to be with Harley by the end because he wanted a somewhat normal life, but she really only wanted the Joker. Even the prison guards didn't want the real Arthur Fleck, and it was clear that the Joker was causing him more harm than good. He witnessed the impact he made on the people he hurt as the court case went on, which ultimately led him to confessing that the murders were done by Arthur Fleck, and only Arthur Fleck. So all of this leads to him getting shanked 100 times by the very end, and it's done by someone who is clearly crazier than him. Arthur was never the type to lead a movement or scheme like the Joker we've become accustomed to. It makes complete sense that this inmate would be the one to become the new Joker, and Arthur ultimately faces the consequences, but he is finally free from the pain he's been living in. So to sum it up, I think this ending made perfect sense for the story that they went with. Now you're probably thinking, wow, I can't believe this guy liked this ending, or even liked this movie. Yeah, that's not entirely the case. I appreciate what this movie was trying to do, and I think it certainly stands out and makes complete narrative sense for the character, but it completely changes how we see the first movie. And I really didn't want that story to get affected, because that's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, if not one of my favorite movies of all time. We find out that the woman that lived in his apartment building actually survived, and that kind of eliminates the mystery of the first movie about whether or not he actually killed her. I also really like that the first movie ended with him embracing the Joker instead of him taking his own life. It showed that society created the Joker, and I thought that was a really cool take. For this mentally unstable person, that was a happy ending for him, and I think in all of our heads we knew that one day he would meet Batman, and the rest is history. When you watch the first movie, you can tell that they never intended to make a sequel. The movie itself wasn't bad to me, it just felt so unnecessary. I think people have been a little too harsh in saying that's one of the worst comic book movies of all time, because to me there's still some things to enjoy about this one. While the musical scenes didn't entirely serve a purpose, they were still entertaining at times, and the acting and cinematography are still on point. I want to see Todd Phillips continue to create movies because I love his style and the vision he has. To me, these two movies are far beyond comic book movies. They're just about a man named Arthur Fleck, a man who wants to be seen for who he really is. And I appreciate that Todd Phillips tried to take a big swing with this one and do something somewhat different, but it just didn't work out. And I think this one really undermines the first movie. So yes, the ending to Joker 2 made complete sense, and in a weird way, I appreciate that ending, given the way that this movie played out. But in my head, this story ended with the first movie, and I don't plan on watching the sequel ever again. What are your thoughts on Joker 2, and did you feel the same way about it? At this point, I desperately want Will Smith to show up at my front door with that gadget from Men in Black and erase my memory. But that doesn't exist, so he'll probably just slap the shit out of me.